Something's breaking as I come on the air here. As you know, Biden and Blinken keep pouring billions and billions and billions more into the coffers of the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran. They only had $4 billion on hand when Donald Trump left office. Now they have tens of billions. And they're using that money to produce weapons for Russia. They're selling their oil mostly to China. And they're making tens of billions of dollars for which they are funding terrorism against Israel, terrorism against the United States, terrorism against anybody that doesn't agree with them. And, of course, funding the attacks on American forces overseas for which they're not paying any prices. Well, I've been saying over and over again, it's time for the Republicans, particularly in the House, to do something about it. And they have an excellent Speaker of the House, quite frankly. He's a good man. They've tried to destroy him, have the media, because he's a faithful Christian. He's a born-again Christian. And, you know, if you're born-again Christian or you're an Orthodox Jew or you're a faithful Catholic, you're a religious extremist. This coming from the Marxists and the other reprobates in the media. But the vote in the House just now was 307 to 119. One present, 8 not voting. On House Bill 5961. Titled No Funds for Iranian Terrorism Act. 90 Democrats joined the Republicans. Now, what's interesting is that means over 120 Democrats voted against it. But 90 is a big number, I suppose. And 307, that's a significant majority. So now this bill goes immediately to the United States Senate, where Chuck Schumer is in control of the daily agenda, of whether votes are scheduled or not. Now, obviously, the Republicans in the Senate have some power, too. They can shut that damn place down until there's a vote on this thing. They certainly can, and they must. They've got to show some strength, for God's sakes. I mean, the House can't do all the lifting under our system. It's one part of the bicameral Congress. And if it got to the floor, I'm sure it would pass. But what this does is, among other things, it exposes the Hamas wing of the Democrat Party, and it exposes those who have moral integrity and those who don't. Chuck Schumer gave this speech the other day, and I'll talk about this because it's not what it's all said to be. Now it's time to act. He's the majority leader. He's Jewish. He's from New York. He made that clear in his speech. He said his fellow travelers, partly responsible for anti-Semitism. It's amazing he uses a Marxist phrase, isn't it, Mr. Producer? His fellow travelers. But nonetheless, we salute him for that little piece of the speech. Doesn't call out anybody by name. Nobody. Doesn't condemn the administration for not taking forceful action against anti-Semitism where it can. College campuses and universities, it's picking one off here and there. No presidential speech about it, nothing. We haven't even heard from the Attorney General. More on that later. So this now is in the Senate. It's on Schumer's desk, and what's he going to do about it? And what are the Republicans going to do to force action on this? Michael Johnson, the Speaker of the House, the Republican, he's already brought it up. They voted on it. It's now in the Senate. And this would also stop Biden from giving Iran sanctions relief, including that $10 billion and the $6 billion earlier. And any future monies. Now, think about this. Why do we even need a vote in Congress to tell the administration to stop doing this? I mean, shouldn't they be stopping it on their own? They're not required to do this. So Congress has to tell the administration to cut it out. Arming our enemy. I don't know of another president in American history that armed our enemy. It is insanity. They're sabotaging the American people. They're sabotaging Israel while they're trying to put a jackboot on Israel's throat. That's right, I said it. The greatest enemy Israel faces today is the Biden administration. Why? Because it can defeat Hamas. It can defeat Hezbollah. It can defeat Iran if it has to. But it can't do those things if the United States piles one condition after another on top of it, is funding our enemies and their enemies to the tunes of tens of billions of dollars. You can't have an ally that hugs you, gives you the bear hug, as they say. We stand with Israel. We stand. There's nothing between. Wait. Strongly. Go get him. Go get him. And then days later, they're stabbing him in the back. Now, this legislation is in the Senate. Which senators are going to take the lead? Which senators are going to go to the floor and demand a vote? I'll tell you what's amazing to me. Schumer's not leading the fight. Bernie Sanders isn't leading the fight. Why? I've explained this in the last few days about how certain Jews view themselves as purely ethnic Jews. With very little connection to Orthodox Jews or Jews that follow the Torah much more closely than they do. They have almost nothing in common with them. View them as kind of radical, kind of weird, kind of extremists. That's why Thomas Friedman is constantly trashing religious Jews in Israel. He's the columnist for the New York Times that gets Pulitzer Prizes for publishing fiction. He's a buffoon. Bernie Sanders is a Marxist. You can't be a Marxist and believe in the Torah. You can't be a Marxist and really believe in the Bible. Because Marx says burn all those things. But I saw a reporter the other day refer to Bernie Sanders and all the sanctions effectively he wants to place on Israel and reminded us, and he's a Jewish senator. My point is this. When I read what Mike Lee posts and said, when I read what Tom Cotton posts and says, one from Utah, one from Arkansas, how many Jews are in those states? 7? I really don't know. I'm just making a point. When righteous Gentiles are taking the lead in the United States Senate, that tells you a lot about the Democrat Party and the Marxist left. But it also tells you about the fantastic conservatives that we have in Congress. They're not the only ones. Lee is an example. Cotton's an example. They support Israel more than Thomas Friedman. They support Israel more than Antony Blinken. They support Israel certainly more than Bernie Sanders. It's amazing, isn't it? And they support Israel more than Chuck Schumer. You know, Chuck Schumer's a fraud and a phony and a fake. He votes against the Iran deal, and yet, as the Democrat leader under Obama, he's behind the scenes pushing everybody else to vote for it. What kind of a sleazeball does that? Chuck Schumer, that's what kind of sleazeball. And he waited a long time to give that speech. Long time. More on that later. So there it is. The legislation sits. It's in the Senate now. Now, what are they going to do about it? This is something you and I have been calling for. This is something you and I have been pushing. What will the Republicans in Congress do? Okay. Mike Johnson, the Speaker, and the Republicans acted. They got 90 Democrats to go along. Now, what's Schumer going to do about it? What's Bernie Sanders going to do about it? Bernie Sanders hates Israel. Hates it. He's the Talib of the U.S. Senate. He is. There's not a communist regime on the face of the earth that at one time or another Bernie Sanders didn't support. So there the bill sits. Let's see what happens in the Senate. We have a killer couple of shows this week, and we really, really do. And I know many of you are going to be busy, but can I encourage you, entice you, persuade you to watch Saturday night show, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox, where we have General Keane and Senator Tom Cotton and my, if I say so myself, my killer opening statement, and they are fantastic. And if you're going to be busy, you can set your DVR. It's very simple. You can record on your smart TV. It's very simple. And same with Sunday, where we have former ambassador from the United States to Israel under Donald Trump, David Friedman, former congressman and Republican candidate for governor of New York, Lee Zeldin. And again, my opening statement. I want you to know something. Nobody writes anything for me. Mr. Producer, open the phone. Open your microphone. Do you write anything for me?
Not a thing.
Any of my comments, any of my opening statement, anything. Now, Mr. Producer is the best in the business. He's my executive. He works very, very hard. He finds these clips and so forth. I send him clips, too. I decide what I'm going to keep or not. He really is the best. He's been with me since day one, and I'm a very lucky person. But on TV, you see these guys looking at monitors. I don't have, what do they call those monitors people read? I don't even remember the name of them. Teleprompters. You know, Biden can't even get it right on the teleprompter. I don't have teleprompters. I have monitors, but they have pictures, not, of who the guest is or something like that. So I take notes of myself, or if I read something, I'll hold up the document or from my book or a book or something, or I'll just speak to you. Everything you hear from me is from me. But I'll give you the example because many people ask me about behind-the-scenes stuff. To the extent I can tell you, I will tell you this. When I prepare for my Saturday and Sunday Fox shows, I spend hours gathering research. I want to be accurate. I know so many of you take the time to watch. You have a right to accurate information. 95% of it doesn't make it on the air because I don't have the time. But if I'm going to do a show, let's say I tape a show at noon, I'm up at 6:30 working on it. I don't want a pat on the back. I just want you to know I put an effort into this. Radio, this program, Eastern Time, comes on at 6. I'm prepping for this show morning, noon, and night. Mr. Producer is catching my emails, catching my comments left and right all day long. This is a 24/7, to me, obligation that I have. Or I might even say blessing that I have. And particularly at times like this, when the world's on the brink, when the world's on the edge, it is not the time to skate. And I don't hide anything. The last 10 or 12 days have been miserable for me. They say it's not COVID, it's not so, maybe it's this China stuff. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's been brutal. And it pains me to have missed last night's program. But it pains me. But I'm not going to sit here and hack and cough on the microphone all night long and turn you off anyway. It's very important to circle back. That you make it clear to your senators that you expect to vote on this bill and you want it to be sent to Biden. And it's time to push back. It's time to draw lines. And it's time to take back our foreign policy.